Education loves a good pendulum swing. We swing one way and then the other, trying to find the next right way to teach.
But great teaching is not about choosing sides. It's about knowing when to lean into tradition and when to transform it.
Today, we're going to be talking about the difference between transformational teaching and traditional teaching, and that it's not a competition. It's actually how we can work best together with the two. Welcome to Integrated EDU,
where innovation meets education.
Here, we explore fresh strategies,
creative learning pathways,
and powerful tools to boost student engagement and growth.
Let's elevate education,
one idea at a time. Hey everyone, welcome back to Integrated EDU. I'm Megan.
And I'm Kara.
Hey, on today's episode, we're going to be talking all about the difference between traditional teaching and transformational teaching. Kara and I have a different take on this. Listen, we're not for one way or for the other. It's not a pendulum swing. In fact, we really believe that these two types of teaching need to be one and the same. You need to use them both to be a great teacher.
Absolutely. So we're first going to just kind of talk a little bit about what we mean when we say these words, when we think of traditional teaching. Now, when we think of traditional teaching, we are thinking more along the lines of the structure, we're thinking of clarity and very intentional instruction given by the teacher.
Yeah, this approach, you're thinking tradition. We kind of think old school.
That's very true.
Something like exactly. Back to the old 80s, 90s classrooms, our desks are in rows and, the teacher's up front. It's maybe a little Charlie Brown, want. But at the same time, it's providing the structure for our students. It's that clarity of instruction. It's kind of almost like the foundational starting point.
And I think that's why this type of teaching still needs to be evident in classrooms, is because it does provide students with the clarity that they need. And you think it also provides kids with the structure that they need to feel confident and safe in going into a learning environment as well.
Yeah, it's that explicit instruction that our students need. Yeah. And when we think about traditional teaching, I really think that a lot of times that comes for our younger students or skills that need those foundations, right? You're thinking phonics, phonemic awareness, Absolutely. Math facts, capital letters and sentences, we're talking basics here, right? But you need to know, this is exactly what you need to learn, and then move into what comes next for that.
Absolutely. So then after thinking of that traditional learning, we also are talking about transformational learning or transformational teaching. And this type of teaching and learning is definitely based more on the experiences that kids have when in a classroom. It's talking about how kids are connecting, and it is talking about developing meaning behind what they are learning.
Yeah, it's creating a space for your students that is experimental, it's engaging, it's fun. And then when that happens, and when Kara says that there's meaning behind it, that information is sticking, right? And that's where that amazing student growth comes from. So today we're literally talking about how are we going to integrate the two together to meet the needs of each individual classroom that we're encountering.
Absolutely. Because the beauty of great teaching is integrating these two methods together. Because like Meg said at the beginning, we cannot continue to have these huge pendulum swings in education. And there are so many good things about each. And so now our job is to kind of bring back that art of teaching and design our instruction so they have components of both. So that way our students are truly benefiting and succeeding in whatever we're trying to teach them.
Yeah, if you think if one falls short, right? If we just lean into tradition, we're having too much structure, right? Yeah. And it is...
It goes more into the compliance mode if it's literally just, very straight, explicit instruction across the board. Right? It kind of gives that, it does give that, it brings that picture to life in your head that you...
Well, you think, yeah, exactly. You think if you're a strictly traditional teacher, or you lean towards that, but are you happy? I'm thinking about those teachers that are compliant. They're kind of grumpy.
Yeah,
I don't mean,
there's
it's like follow this curriculum with
mhm,
fidelity, do this thing, just do the job.
mhm,
And I don't think any of us ever walked into a classroom when we first started teaching
mhm.
and thought I'm only going to be compliant with what I want to do,
Right.
but I want to feel connected and
Mhm.
have ownership in my
Right.
students and what I'm teaching.
Yeah, too much structure or too much traditional approach can lead to that compliance. The joy kind of gets sucked out of it a little bit as
Yeah.
well. So again, too much of structure can lead to that compliance. Whereas, if you have too much of that transformative or experiential type of learning, then you almost have, you know,
Chaos.
chaos almost, like
Uncontrolled
it's
chaos.
uncontrolled chaos, and not in a good way, not in a way that students are being guided and taken through an experience, but in a way where students just feel kind of out of control. There isn't that parameter of safety, and so one falls short. There's too much of one, too much of the other is not always the best. We got to be
Yeah.
able to find our way to integrate that together.
Well, and I think too, like when transformational teaching kind of became another, another swing of the pendulum is people teachers may have thought too of, well, I have to have this like Pinterest worthy classroom. And when I say Pinterest worthy, I'm talking about these like grand transformations
Mhm.
that take hours of planning and preparation and money. And, for we talk a lot about purposeful,
Mhm.
and is what you're creating for that transformational piece purposeful for what your students need to understand
Mhm.
the content that you're teaching.
Mhm.
So I think that there is a line between, crazy flexible seating and desks in rows,
Mhm.
or a huge transformation for a Starbucks cafe versus just doing this what the curriculum is asking us to
Mhm.
do, and not going away from that.
Mhm.
So back to that, what does it look like for your students in your classroom this year?
Mhm.
Next year it's going to be different. Before we
Yeah.
hopped on, we were just talking about,
Mhm.
that the things in Kara's classroom that worked last year do not work the same way
Mhm.
as they do for this new group of kids.
Yeah, it's really about finding that. I don't even want to say balance, because a
Mm,
lot of times when people think balance, they think 50-50, and that's not necessarily true either. But really finding the formula that works best. And I was just thinking Meg was giving these, drastic examples, and these huge transformations, which if part of that is something that you enjoy and that you love, which is awesome. But you also have to think, what is the purpose, and did they get the foundational pieces that they
mm,
needed for that to be purposeful? We're not saying that you can't do that or shouldn't do that. We're just trying to emphasize that there are foundational pieces that you need to make sure you hit on as well, and it's purposeful to the standards and the content that you're supposed to be covering.
yeah, yeah. And I think
Hmm.
as educators, we want that for our kids.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
we plan that way. And when it doesn't go maybe exactly the way we thought, we improvise, we go to plan B, C, D.
Hmm.
But when you start thinking about what does this look like in my own classroom, right?
Hmm.
You need to think, okay, if we're integrating traditional and transformational together, we're moving from understanding, right? That traditional understanding what the skill or content is. What experience have I encountered to understand at a deeper level, and then do I have meaning behind that?
Hmm.
So you're going from understanding, experience, meaning.
Hmm.
What that does for your students is they've learned a new skill, they've experienced it, so they have some background knowledge to tie it to, and now they have meaning of it, they
Hmm.
have ownership.
Hmm.
Ultimately that's the student growth.
Absolutely. They've created a connection with it that they can take with them past, that unit, that lesson, that time in your classroom, and they've connected to it in a way where they can use it later on in their educational journey, which
Yeah.
is the ultimate goal.
And
We want to be able to build on all of those skills.
right. And we talk a lot about our pathways of learning
Hmm.
and our experiences and what that looks like in the classroom. So thinking about how do we access these students in a purposeful way after, with the understanding of those foundation skills.
Yeah.
And we say a lot that if your students, your students are struggling with this particular concept, throw an experience, make it a little
Hmm.
transformational.
Hmm.
That will help elevate the idea behind this hard
Hmm.
content area, and it then leads to meaning.
Absolutely. And what we talk about is I want to dare say it does hit a lot on that transformational
Hmm.
teaching side of things. But we don't want misconceptions thinking that we don't have things that we teach in a traditional environment, I guess,
Yeah.
or in a traditional way. Because like Meg said, there are certain things that you just have to teach, right? Like we have to teach certain phonetic skills, certain phonemic awareness things, certain math skills and understandings or concepts that they have to know. But there is a way to teach those foundational skills using those pathways in a transformative way.
Hmm.
So you're taking those foundations, but also integrating in a way that maybe they're starting to experience it, maybe in a little bit different way. So that's, where we're trying to integrate all of those different things together to truly create a successful environment for our kids.
Yeah, I think a big piece of this is we give you permission to to craft lessons that make sense for your students,
Hmm.
right? Like I think that we're missing that art of teaching right now,
Hmm.
that we become very compliant educators
Hmm.
because we want what's best for our kids. We're told just do it like this, and this will be the
Hmm.
result of it. But sometimes we do know best. It's kind of
Hmm.
like that mom knows best approach of what does it look like. So
Hmm.
it's not 50% traditional and 50% transformational. It's what percentage, I guess, does works for you in your
Hmm.
classroom right now.
Hmm.
So,
And I think too, what's kind of interesting when we talk about that pendulum swing, I feel like we see a lot of that in classrooms, just real life. We see a lot of teachers that, teach to the curriculum and are very compliant and it's a very traditional set, but then they're like, oh, well, on Friday, I want to have fun. And they swing over
mm,
to that transformational and, have those transformations and things. And they're not connected, and so students are having a hard time understanding, well, how come we did it this way all week and now all of a sudden we have this,
yes.
and then they kind of lose their minds, and so then you become frustrated and all of those things. And so really trying to meld and integrate those types of learnings and instructions together
Yeah.
for their entirety of their learning experience, they'll just come to know, like, there are certain things, but we can learn this in a different way. We'll get to experience it, and it becomes less of a
Sh-
polarized,
Yeah.
polarized learning experience for them and more of a smooth flowing integrated
Yeah. It's
experience.
a smooth pendulum swing.
Yeah, it's not going drastic. It's just a
Yes.
gentle rock.
That's a really good point that you bring that up.
Hmm.
That when, as a teacher, if you swing them really quick one way
Hmm.
and swing them the other way, yeah, how do we feel when that
Yeah,
pendulum swings
exactly.
so much?
Hmm.
We become frustrated. We become crabby.
Hmm.
Some of us outburst, I'm thinking like staff meetings. Some of us have some things to say. And so be thinking about that. How can you slowly integrate, a way of teaching
Hmm.
that meets and have a little fun with it,
Yep.
right? I'm all for veteran teaching, do the things that work for your classroom, and I'm all for the new teacher approach, give it a go, see what
Hmm.
happens. And there's also a fine line between, you know, just let loose a little bit.
Hmm.
And, I think that would be
Hmm.
very enjoyable. So,
Yeah. Really, it really comes down to kind of what Meg said. Like it comes down to the design and the craft of the instruction and really taking into consideration your kids and not um, leading the curriculum isn't leading your decisions necessarily, like the content, of
mhm.
course, but your students are leading your decisions on how you are crafting those lessons and those units. And knowing what traditional aspects you need, but what transformative things could you add as well.
Yeah.
Side note,
Okay.
our book, Elevated Educator, you can kind of see right over there, has some really great examples of how we are able to use both the traditional aspects and the transformative
Hmm.
aspects when designing those lessons and units. We have a whole chapter in there on how to design it and how to plan for it. So if you're looking for any type of help, that would be a great resource.
Yeah. Yeah. You can find it on Amazon. That was a good plug-in. Good plug-in.
Thanks. Thanks.
So, all right. So, what does this look like in your classroom? We're all sitting there like, all right, ladies, this
Hmm.
sounds great, but now what?
Uh-huh.
Well, we are all about we're doing it. We're going to give you ways to do it.
Absolutely.
So, next week, right, whenever that week is for you, next week we want you to look at your lessons and begin with what traditional approaches do you need teaching your content? And then can you use any transformational pieces to elevate that piece? And I'm not talking about creating a whole Starbucks cafe, but what different ways can you bring in to create an experience for your students so that that meaning can connect? Just one lesson, give it a go.
And if you're struggling with like, well, how do I even start with transformational? Just if you go and check out our pathways on the other blogs, our other YouTube episodes, go check those pathways out. That is a great place to start because what those pathways are doing is giving students ways to access information in different ways. You're looking at creation, collaboration, movement. Any types of those pathways are a great place to start when you're thinking of transformational instruction or learning.
Yeah. And it's the instruction from the teacher, and then moving into that facilitator piece, letting the kids kind of take ownership of their learning. A little bit about what Kara was just talking about. Absolutely. So let's think about this, though. Great teaching isn't about choosing sides.
That's so true. I feel like there's a lot of that happening right now, though, in education, whether, you're thinking about the conversations happening in technology and different curriculums. Like there is a huge thing where it's like, well, you need to choose one side. No, you got to choose the other. But honestly, it really comes down to purpose and it comes down to intentionality and it comes down to what's going to be best for your kids.
Yeah, that connection piece. It's not about what side you're on, but how can you integrate them together?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so great teaching isn't either or, right? It's intentionally both. Listen, if you found this session valuable, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. We'd also love to hear what are some traditional approaches that you're trying in your classroom or that you have kept true to, just maybe in the secret. And then what transformational things are you doing that's working with your students? Drop it in the comments below. What grade do you teach and what did you try? Because this is all about sharing with a community of other educators.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us today. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow educators.
Join the conversation in the comments and let us know how you're applying these strategies in your classroom.
Together, we can create meaningful learning experiences for all students.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.